Hey everyone, which original killer design is the best in Dead by Daylight? Looking at their visual design, their sounds, voices, and even powers, and how it all rolls together. This is a very subjective topic I feel, so please do let me know your thoughts as well, down below, and let's get into it. Decent design. Skull Merchant starts us off as the weakest design in the game to me, and largely due to the mixed signals we get with it. Whilst I don't think any individual element of Merchant is necessarily bad, together they do look odd. On one hand, she seems to look like a practical killer with her combat gear and hastily fasten tape over her arm, but then we've got the diamond encrusted mask and high-tech weaponry. One thing I've always thought for Merchant is that she would have been much better received if one of these lanes was picked. Put her in full cosplay like her cosmetics, or alternately give her a more practical fit where she looks like a genius inventor. Both are solid, but blended it looks odd. Aside her immediate visuals, I do like the design of her drone and how it incorporates a skull. I have always overall disliked the name Skull Merchant though. Sure, it's a character in her father's manga, but like, why Skull Merchant? I suppose because she buys and sells companies and does so with skulls or kills, but like, it just doesn't sound quite right. This is what stops Merchant from being more, I think, is the clash of ideas visually, but also more closely in her concept. Twins have the opposite issue, I think, where instead of being over-designed, they're a little bit under-designed, although I do believe this is intentional and faithful to the characters, but this doesn't necessarily make it a compelling design. There's still elements to Twins that could have been embellished slightly more or simply made more engaging. As they are, they're quite dull and lack any sort of interesting visual flair, looking very normal, aside the fact that Charlotte has a large hole in her chest where her brother deploys from. There is story in their design with their worn sickle weapon, their collection of tools and equipment on their back, and drab clothing. However, it lacks that fear factor, or any sort of intrigue, I feel. To take inspiration from the cosmetics, maybe a small coffin Charlotte carries around in her base look would make their design better, or a collection of bones to make a shroud. Just anything to make them appear a bit more intimidating or mysterious. As they are, I sort of just feel bad for them, where I think the desired feeling would be empathy but also fear. Good design. Billy, I would say, falls into being a bit generic, seeing as he is meant to be the stand-in for Bubba. However, he's starkly set apart from Bubba quite clearly. The main problem he has despite this though is he does kind of just look like a guy, with his lore doing a lot I feel to really flesh him out. Visually though, the design works, but I don't think it stands out super well, which is maybe even acknowledged to some extent with him being left off of the DVD posters. I do like elements like his hastily constructed chainsaw, his multiple belt buckles, and distorted voice and screams of passion and anger in game, but I do find there's something just very basic about Billy. One outfit I think would work better for him as a base look is his Tome Lore one, which feels a lot more fitting to me and represents him a bit more wholly and his past experiences. And also just relays elements like the fact he's a tinkerer a little bit better. Legion, whilst possibly the most generic appearing of the bunch, I actually think are characterized quite well visually, and have lots of small things that do set them apart. It is hard to rank them though, because ultimately they're kind of meant to be generic, as that's sort of the horror they embody. Their masks, I think, are the key element that works well with the visual scrappiness of them, and how they've clearly been carved with the very blades they wield. You get an idea of their morals or motives by simply looking at their militaristic name, and also base outfits that look like uniform, with their matching leather jackets, cargo pants, and bullets appearing around their waist. Both Frank and Julie are uniquely set apart with their lobby poses. Frank is this angsty and impetuous character with his excited tapping of his blade, and Julie as the more thoughtful but possibly evil one with her confident poses and calmer movement with the blade. Their sounds, I'd argue, are a little on the weaker side, but their visuals more than make up for it. Hagofind is a little simplistic in her visuals and does definitely lack something. I do love the hex aspect of her and how she carves them out on the ground with the triangular shape. She has cool little growls and screeches, and she's got quite a creepy silhouette with her distorted hand, overgrown due to the magic that afflicts it. I really love how she's named too, being depicted as this old decrepit woman, but in reality being likely one of the youngest killers in the game, creating this stark contrast of what we think when we picture a hag. However, I do find her design a little simple despite this. Her visuals are very flat, and I think nowadays her model is one of the more outdated ones, with her needing a bit of love. I do love the inherent mystery of her design though, where some parts are explained like her lack of flesh, but other parts like her distorted hand and animalistic nature are left more to your interpretation, but shown clearly with things like her mori. Doctor to me is similar to Hag, where there's definitely more generic elements about his design as a crazy doctor, but there's equally elements that set him apart too. I think his core look is fairly stereotypical mad doctor, with his crazy laughs and eagerness to experiment. However, even these are done so well. The part that sets him apart to me is the visuals of the twisted wires up his arm and electrodes on the brain. This, as well as his entire power representation with madness and his shock abilities. Even his white eyes, which are often given to DBD killers seemingly just to make them look spookier, have their own little story here, with them seemingly just being focused balls of electricity, overloading. I love his visual eagerness too as he plays with the bat in his hands. Clown follows on from this trend, where he does look like a relatively typical creepy clown, but has key elements that set him apart and do make you wonder more about him. One of these key things is his agility, I think, shown off through his acute and precise blade movements, despite his size. It shows there's far more to this man, who otherwise wheezes and appears sluggish and sloppy. You get to question if he's even a clown with his outfit not even fitting him. His crusty, horrible hair and messy face paint, it all works. The best and most striking element is surely the trophy ring of fingers around his waist, which is what really characterizes Clown, I think, visually, especially when paired with his Mori. Audio-wise, it's got to be his constant laughs, which are belted out after almost every action. Krasue has a lot of strong elements, I think, with it being pretty close in line to the Krasues of Thai folklore, but with some seeming slight visual alterations, like DBD's version having a more bloodied and skinned face, which is something DBD likes to do, is take the folklore version, much like with Spirit and Noni, but then alter them in some way. I think it works too, and I especially love the twitches that Burong does as she awaits the Krasue's emergence. There's something quite inherently uncomfortable about even watching her in the lobby, which I think is very well done. I would say as a whole, in fact, the visuals of Krasue are probably the strongest element about her, with the contrast between the human Burong and then this monstrous inner beast. The sound design here is pretty amazing too, with the horrific noises you hear when playing as her. Great design. Wraith is great, but I do find he has a bit of a clash of ideas. There is great storytelling and mystery done with his weapon, for example, with it housing a skull, which raises so many questions immediately as to who this is and why this was their fate. Was it an enemy, a friend, a lover? Is it used in anger or through love? Then there's his daunting sideways head tilt and weirdly straight posture that just make him freaky as he stares blankly into your soul. The core issue with him is his outfit, I'd argue, a product of seemingly some kind of story deviation for Wraith, as his outfit doesn't really suit the Autohaven realm, but instead the backwater swamp, with the hooks especially looking like they fit him. His mangled Wrecker look to me feels far more suited to his backstory. His sounds are also amazing, and the whole concept of using an ancient and mysterious bell to become invisible is just great. Deathslinger could initially be passed off as rather generic cowboy killer, but he is so much more, I think. He has a lot of storying in his visual design, which I love too. His brace leg, his twisted, self-designed spear gun with its intriguing name of Death to Bayshore, and his overall scarred face and broken jaw. What initially appears as just a cowboy instantly becomes something much more twisted. This is only expanded when listening to his chuckles and the horrific sound of the spear gun firing and reeling in. So whilst he is a bit drab, and quite one note with his colour scheme, I do think it works in his favour to create an intriguing looking bounty hunter. Knight is similar in that initially he's easy to pass off as just a knight, but what I do like about him is his appearance as one, but the reality of who he really is, which is told through visuals. He's not a noble knight with his brutal spiked knee guard, worn half-shattered sword which is clearly struck hard, his overgrown hair falling horribly out of his helmet slits, his cape is short and torn, blood appears in various areas, and he stands firmly. But all of this could be easily overlooked with just a quick glance at him, where you would just think, oh, he's just a noble knight. I do however still wish there were a few more elements to make him look a bit more typically menacing, as we see in various outfits like the Red Knight or Grim Campaign. Knight is higher for me too though because of the guards, each with their own personality, design and sounds. I also adore how he hulks along, his armor shaking as he does. Houndmaster I think has a solid design, however I do feel there is something slightly lacking from her. I love how she looks and appears as a pirate, and I think it's effective. Snug too also being characterized well. I also love the small details like her scarred face, which makes you wonder what the story is there, along with her orange eye. The main thing she lacks is more beyond this, honestly. The majority of her life has been spent fighting and surviving. I almost wish she had more scars and trinkets from her travels, more weaponry on her waist to show off her battle prowess, some more flourishes similar to her Blood Moon outfit. Otherwise I do think she's great, with amazing voice lines and sounds as well. Trapper is maybe the character called generic the most, and just a Jason copy, but this isn't really true. Trapper has plenty that's unique about him, that tells his own story. His rough hand-forged weapons, his bear mask, and even the spikes piercing his back, which have been theorized about for years. Sure, he looks similar to Jason and was inspired by him, but the unique way his character is expressed through his visuals is really exceptional, I think. Even to his sounds, where he primarily heavily breathes and grunts. You get the idea that he's a brute from his rough, cut-up appearance, yet he's clearly thoughtful and intelligent with his trap-focused power. Trapper, despite his Jason origins, is well designed and has become iconic as DBD's figurehead in his own right. Trickster is likely one of the most controversial designs in the game, if not the most, with some I imagine calling it peak and others calling it trash. I'm of the opinion that it's good. I think they created a twisted, attention-hungry K-pop idol incredibly well, and relayed this very modern and real type of horror in a great way. Trickster especially excels with his lobby poses and looks, and his excited laughter and voice lines, which contrasts with his sudden outbursts of anger very well. His visuals are probably some of the least scary, but they don't need to be in this instance, as the sounds and vibe do the lifting there, creating a nice contrast to his brighter visuals, with his far smaller spattering of blood. Amazing design. Oni may initially appear a little generic, and to just be a copied version of the Japanese folklore version, but this definitely isn't the case, with our Oni being much more of a blend of the character of Kazan and a folklore Oni, with some key Oni elements like the blue skin, kanabo, and horns, yet equally there's samurai elements like his wearing of intricate armor, wielding a katana, and having a mask over having actual horns. I like how hulking Oni sounds as he stomps, and how his voice is booming and carries throughout the trials, his strange waving hair, and how he erupts and glows when in Blood Fury, with the whole idea of a channeled rage power fueled by blood just being insanely cool. He's great. Plague to me is almost a better version of twins in terms of their goal of looking rather innocent and actually inciting empathy for them. However, Plague does this much better, with her still looking intimidating and scary on top of this. Sure, she's this elegant priestess, but half of her body is rotted and infested by this mysterious plague that she spews out of her. Yes, she wields a censer as her weapon, but you can see she's serious about it, with it being wrapped around her arm for support, so she can swing it properly. She has these elegant nails, but then there's the thought of how deadly these could be carving into you. It works really well. She's also just a bit more imposing, being tall and confident. Her voice lines and lobby animations really add to her as well, with her being even more mysterious and scary with her ancient tongue no one understands, and her seeming devotion to the entity, praying to the skies. Singularity is a really cool and I think very unique creation, with the closest comparison people often draw being The Thing, but to be honest I don't really agree with this that much. Hux is quite separate, even if he does have some tropes in his story of AI gaining sentience and becoming evil. His visuals are unique and uncomfortable, with his odd twitches and with all these small details you can see with the moving parts of machinery. The only thing I do wish was more evident was the flash across him being a bit more visually human. As it is, it looks too inhuman to me, to find it disturbing, with it instead being this sort of purple color. I do like how the crystal that provided his sentience is lodged into his arm though, and in general just the weird blend of visuals that make him up. The biopods I do find a little odd as well, but I think on the whole Hux is a unique and interesting creation, with a great characterization through his voice lines as well. Artist as a prime project of the entity is characterized very well, with her crow-like body and imitation and even sounds. She's a great case of a character looking nearly normal but not quite, being uncanny with her elongated limbs and neck. There is clear story to her design too, with her severed hands and tongue visible, now replaced with ink that can damage you. This ink also coursing through her body and even appearing on her map, creating a lot of mystery, and very much giving artistic vibes, like she's an artistic interpretation of herself almost. Artist is designed very well, I think. Blight is very well designed, I think, as well, as a very DBD lore original character, being closely tied to it. The core design choice I like of Blight is the contrasting elements of chaos and order, inspired by Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. We can see his slump posture, twisted face, and burst jaw, yet still see the original elegance he had with his suit trousers and fancy cane. His sounds are great, and I love his twitches as bro is literally tweaking, lacking the blighted serum. Similar to others I've mentioned, I do still think he could use a few more design elements to show his transformation, a bit like in the True Blight outfit, the core two being his shattered jaw and hands with 6 fingers. I think it'd be awesome to have more of these little details as well. Judgment may seem a bit self-congratulatory to place here, as we of course voted on its design as a community, but of course the devs still realistically designed the character. I love this design too, with the clashing, perfect porcelain upper body of Judgment paired with the strange, fleshy true form, seemingly, that features the strange eyes and faces twisted into it. Judgment has a booming voice of retribution, and wields a staff which it creepily strokes after hitting a survivor. It's all so well done, and whilst it does feel divine, there's an element of groundedness and disturbing reality to this character. Peak design. Huntress is one of the game's earliest designs that wasn't meant to fit or follow a certain horror trope, I think, and it is a huge success, being just as iconic as Trapper, but also more original, I'd say as well. Huntress's story is so well told through her pairing of practical but also somewhat domestic and motherly clothing choices. She wears a creepy bunny mask with blackened eyes and hums a lullaby constantly, only broken by her occasional laughter, yet equally a breakout of childish anger. It creates all of these contrasts throughout her, and it tells us a lot of story with these simple details. She moves calmly and slowly, yet is fast and precise with her hatchet. Huntress is very well done, I think. Nurse is another absolutely stellar case of a well-made killer design. She's often compared to the nurses of Silent Hill, where there's some resemblance, sure, but I think not enough to detract from her original design. Nurse is so freaky, and one of the characters you can practically infer her entire story from just watching and listening. You can garner her anger, yet also her deep inner sadness as you watch things like her Mori, where she aggressively chokes the survivor then calmly closes their eyes. Her stifled breathing and clogged throat are horrifying, and the pain screams as she blinks are uncomfortable but also terrifying. Everything about her look makes you question what happened to her, with small things suggesting various options. She's peak. Spirit, much like Oni, may initially seem to just be a close adaptation of Japanese folklore, and specifically an onryo. However, this isn't quite the case, with Spirit instead being an adapted version, unique in many ways, but original to DBD in its own. Spirit is so well done with her twitchy movements, the shift of expression she has from anger to a deep sadness, her severed limbs now held together by an invisible force, and the glass still splintering her now blue skin. Everything about this design is just incredibly done. All topped off with her floaty hair. Her sounds are amazing too, and really relay her story very well. It's peak. Dredge was heavily praised upon its release for its horrific nature and design, and yep, I still think it's peak. This thing is so creepy and mysterious with its thick entity-like fog paired with the massive mysterious meaty limbs that fall out to form a sort of recognizable form. The more you look on Dredge, the more horrifying things you notice, like the hands twisted into its knotted appendage or the small baby arm seemingly on its other side, the strange spine-looking thing on its back where you question the biology of the thing it even came from. The sounds only make it more horrifying, with Nightfall being on another level. This thing is horrifying. Unknown for sure though has to be the best. An original, so well designed and iconic in its own right, it became an instant success overnight. Unknown is so freaky with its twisted body, horrific yet mysterious voice lines, and just general vibe. This character has so much aura in and out of the trials, doing so many things that confuse us, like crawling around, then snapping its neck the wrong way, then revealing its true form of tentacles within in its Mori. Nothing about this thing is predictable, and it perfectly matches the lore, which is very much this same trend. All of this refined perfectly with its name of The Unknown, a character which to me embodies the very idea of fear itself and why we feel it. Alright, well, that's gonna do it. I do hope you enjoyed. Thanks for watching. Let me know your thoughts as always down below, and goodbye.